annual OneVoice Europe student residential programme took place this year from the 7th to 11th of September 2015. This was the longest programme we have ever done, with an intensive preparation period prior to the programme, important new sessions, and new follow-up initiatives that aim to have a long-term impact on university campuses in the UK. 20 students assembled at UCL, London, for the 5-day residential programme on Israel-Palestine. We had several Israeli Society, Palestinian Society, Jewish Society, and Islamic Society presidents. The background of the participants was hugely varied. Along with politics, theology, history, international relations, and anthropology students, there was an artist, scientist, and a sports journalist, demonstrating how this conflict affects and concerns such a wide swathe of British society, and why we need to encourage positive activism on this issue. The aim of the first session is to introduce the participants to the work of OneVoice and place the conflict in a political and historical context. We invited Dr. Tony Klug, a special advisor on the Middle East to the Oxford Research Group and an international board member of the Palestine-Israel Journal, to give an introduction to the conflict. After this, participants were able to Skype with young leaders from Israel and Palestine to hear first-hand their stories and opinions on the conflict. For many, speaking to their Israeli and Palestinian peers was a thought-provoking and novel experience, changing many of the preconceptions that they had brought with them earlier that day.
Surprised, I guess, by that, because I think it's when you do just watch snippets of the news, you just think that it's constantly like horrendous, and I guess I was surprised how that isn't actually the case, and it's a bit more of like an undercurrent of what's normal.
On day 2, the participants took part in more focused discussion about the conflict, including talks about the geopolitics of the region, the future of Gaza, and the history of negotiations between Israel and Palestine.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Rosemary's talk just now. I think it offered some really insightful comments on religion in particular, and perhaps the role it has, but also how it affects people in very different ways. Religion is a very personal thing, and how it's not a homogenous clash of different religions. And I think too often a conflict like the Israel-Palestine conflict can be reduced to one thing. I think Rosemary did a lot to illustrate the complexities of the issues there.
We were fortunate enough to spend the whole of day 3 hosted in the House of Lords, where participants participated in panels about the role of religion, extremism, settlements, and Islamophobia and anti-Semitism on campus. We therefore invited 3 leaders from the 3 Abrahamic faiths to discuss their religion and the role it plays in the region. The last session of the day was on anti-Semitism and Islamophobia on UK campuses, during which the students discussed how the conflict played out on campuses at their university.
Being an ethnocracy, defining yourself in religious terms, what's interesting is there's loads of them in the world, but somehow in Israel it's discussed differently, and we know why. It's because of the conflict, it's because of the interest in it.
The Model United Nations simulation provides the participants the opportunity to understand the conflict from differing perspectives, and puts them in the shoes of world leaders to understand the complexities inherent in the different aims of each country.
This is a conflict unlike any other, which is convoluted by emotion, sentiment, and religious fault lines. Russia stands on the side of peace and justice, and the right to self-determination for both Palestinians and Israelis.
Well, this year, International Women's Week, no violations around the world of women's culture, except in Israel. It's this sort of targeting which we are seeing as very detrimental to us and to trying to engage the international community as a democratic state.
I think it's quite hard as well, like hearing some people make really, really good arguments and stuff like that, but then you can't agree because of the country that you've been assigned, their position. I think that's quite a difficult thing to come to terms with.
After 4 days of intense debate, learning, negotiation, and training, participants were invited to graduate after a talk from Sir Vincent Fien, former UK ambassador to Jerusalem. It was at this point that the participants spoke about what they'd learned and what they'd planned to do after the course, with some pragmatic and inspirational plans laid out.
I was on the committee of Students for Justice of Palestine, still am for next year, and I feel I'm going to bring a new perspective to the debate where it's not just one side shouting at the other side shouting at the other, waving flags and boycotting each other's events.
I'd quite like to go back to campus and maybe start a discussion group or something where people can feel free to come and just talk about it in a neutral environment and discuss the core issues and get everyone involved.
It's been amazing. I would recommend it to anyone who's interested in the conflict and finding a sustainable solution. I myself came here believing that two-state solution is dead. I believe it is now it now has the ability to be revived in some way, but it is not the only solution on the table. But I would give it some serious consideration.
Yeah, I think the fact that there is this sort of apathy and pessimism just drives the need and reinforces what OneVoice is doing. Yeah, absolutely. It's even more.
It's been really good so far. I think my personal favourite was the Tony Plug bit yesterday, just to learn about the whole history of it, to patch up bits of knowledge that I didn't really know at the moment. So.
Anyone interested in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict should definitely do it. It also teaches you a lot about your biases and how polarized the conflict really is, and to question critically your position previously to whence you came.
It's made me really respect people who are sort of involved in this work field, and I've taken from this sort of how to be, I don't know, a sense of patience. Because you have to have a lot of patience when dealing with matters like this. So sometimes it can be very frustrating, but you have to really keep your calm.
I think one thing that's really stood out for me is the whole idea of narratives and labels, and how the idea of polarization is just so dangerous, and I experience that on a daily basis. So I really want to go out and make something of that and do it in a creative way by spoken word or poetry, because I think those kind of vehicles are really, really important for getting these ideas out there.
I'd recommend it to anyone. It's a great program, and if you get on, you are incredibly lucky. And for those who don't, apply again. So yeah, thank you OneVoice.